Hi, this is Kip Morrill. I'm traveling about the United States, but I'm always listening to the Bigfoot Society podcast.
Thanks for coming back to Bigfoot Society, your weekly cryptozoology focused podcast where I talk to a different individual in the cryptozoology field, authors, researchers, artists, all sorts of people. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please go ahead, subscribe to this podcast and rate us 5 stars, as it helps us get more into the podcast stratosphere and get better guests on the show. Also, if you're on YouTube, do us a favor, like this video and subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost a thing, and it helps us get out there into the YouTube stratosphere as well. Be sure to leave what your favorite part of the episode was in the comment. Welcome back to another episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. This week I have the pleasure of talking with some new friends from the Liminal Earth collective in the Seattle, Washington state area. We've got Jeremy Puma, Bex Atwood, and Garrett Kelly. Together they make up Liminal Earth. You may have seen them on TikTok, but this is a really fun conversation about finding the weird stuff in your area, celebrating it, and how to investigate even deeper into stuff that some people might take for granted. We'll be talking about everything from Bigfoot to piles of orange peels that mysteriously keep appearing. So you'll definitely not want to miss this episode, so sit back, make yourself comfortable, or if you're going on a jog, make sure you're paying attention, because hey, there's other stuff out there. And thanks again for choosing to listen to the Bigfoot Society podcast as we chat with the team from Liminal Earth in Washington State. All right. Thanks for coming back to another episode of Bigfoot Society. I've got the privilege tonight of talking with some new friends from the, well, I mean, they're all over the place, from Liminal Earth. And I've got Garrett, Bex, and Jeremy here. And thanks so much for coming on, guys. Do you mind if, Garrett, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do with Liminal Earth.
Yeah, my name's Garrett. I live in Bremerton, which is a little place outside of Seattle. And Jeremy and I made a map a couple years ago where we just put people's paranormal experiences on this map. It started in Seattle, but now it's all over the world. It's called Liminal Earth. Outside of it, I've done like music stuff. I work at Pop Records doing the tech stuff there, and I also started a radio station with my wife for like 13 years. It's going. It's called Hollow Earth Radio, and also like like HUH. So it's actually on the FM dial. And even early on, then I was into paranormal stuff, and we'd have kind of paranormal type interviews and stuff like that. And yeah, so I trying to mix a lot. I have a religious studies background, and I try to mix that and my tech background with this kind of paranormal stuff. And I've known Jeremy since I moved to Seattle almost 20 years, and we've always been talking about this stuff. And just now with TikTok and media and stuff, we're doing a lot more. So
I love that. Oh man, the combination of tech and the weird and paranormal is a very cool thing. Jeremy, let's continue with you. Let's hear a little bit about what it is that you do and how you connect to Liminal Earth.
Yeah, sure. Jeremy Puma, I'm living in Seattle, Washington, and I'm originally from St. Augustine, Florida, which is kind of a notoriously paranormal hotspot. You know, the haunted lighthouse that every single ghost hunting show goes on. But we have plenty of cryptids down there in Florida as well. And so I was always I was raised in a strangeness nexus, and that was always my interest. And now I live here in Seattle, and I am kind of a plant person. So I do a lot of like plant foraging, plant identification, out walking around in the woods and parks and things like that a lot. And yeah, as Garrett said, have known each other now for like 20 almost years. And so we always used to talk about this stuff, and we decided to start the map project too. So I don't know, we all have kind of I don't know that there's like one specialization that each of us has. In because we really work closely together as a team. But if I had to have one, it would probably be like plant folklore, occultism, the intersection between the weirdness and the natural world. Yeah, and yeah, that's probably
Dude, I love
that's
that.
probably about
I
it.
love that. Bex, how about yourself?
Hello. Yeah, so I grew up in like the Ohio River Valley
Oh
in
yeah.
Kentuckiana on
Oh.
about a 6 acre farm. We used to have like beef cattle and things. But I spent a lot of time as a kid just roaming the woods all day long. I remember my favorite months would be like July and August because that's when the blackberries would be around. So I would remember spending whole days just picking and walking through the woods. I knew it like the back of my hand. I also grew up very evangelical. So it's very strange looking back now and seeing that part of my life. But then I got to about 16 and I just moved out on my own.
Oh wow.
And I started, I had like a mentor, my journalism teacher really pushed me into like writing, and she was really into paranormal investigation. And so she kind of mentored me into that a little bit.
Okay.
And so I started writing a column for my very rural small town newspaper every week, and it would be me basically checking out all of these sites that you would find on like the corners of the web of like southern Indiana. There's this old burnt down house. You know, did this guy do this thing here? I'm gonna find out.
I love that.
And early on, it was a lot of like, let's go trespass and let's be rebellious and like raise hell, you know. And then at some
Guys,
point, it
don't
started.
trespass. Listeners, don't trespass.
Yeah, don't do that. But
Yeah.
I did at a young age, and then I kind of started shifting my focus more into like I'm curious. How far does this go? I'm learning about the Mothman and all of these things,
Yeah.
and my experiences started to shift, and they started to get more synchronistic and more subtle and meaningful. And yeah, so now, you know, all these years later, I have a degree in botany. I was a horticulturist for a few
Oh, cool.
years. And then I wanted to shift into the paranormal. And so I remember sitting down and being like, I really want to find a way that I can marry like my botany experience with the paranormal. And then I met these guys and it became a natural fit. I guess where I would find my specialty within our group, if we had to pick one, we do bleed into each other quite a bit. I have 8 years professional photography experience.
Wow.
So I left that behind to pursue something a little more up my alley, like exploring the woods and things. That my soul calling, I guess. But yeah, it's really cool to be able to dip my toes back into that world, to be able to offer my old expertise in that, but then marry plants and the paranormal together.
Dude, that I like that. That is very cool. So I'm gonna say, you know, I first heard of your group Liminal Earth from I'm trying to think of what would be the first video that I've seen on you guys on TikTok, because you guys have a huge presence on TikTok. Like, and if you're into like any weird stuff on TikTok, Liminal Earth is going to come up on your feed at one time or another, and you've probably seen Garrett wearing the shrimpy costume, and after that you're just hooked. Or like I think it was Garrett, one of Garrett's videos where he had his special Bigfoot call, and that to me, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And it like got me right in the part of the heart where it was like, as a little kid, you were into like Scooby-Doo. And then like when Stranger Things came out, it was like, it kind of like brought that back to life. And then like I see this and it was like, oh, crank to 11, let's go. Like it's so, you guys are awesome. I love what you're doing. It is so cool. A lot of our listeners are into cryptozoology, of course, because that's what this podcast is focused on. But just for the listeners, let's start with this. So like, let's say we're in an elevator and you're telling me real quick, like what's your elevator pitch for Liminal Earth, if anyone thinks they can take a stab on that, because there's a lot that goes on with Liminal Earth.
Yeah, I can take a stab at it.
All right, Jeremy.
So I would say the elevator pitch for Liminal Earth is that it's a crowdsourced online map of amazing and interesting stories. So we go pretty hard on the paranormal because that's where that most people think of, with like weird stuff. But there's also there's dreams, there's time slips,
Mm.
there's disappearing pizza places, there's somebody who saw a ghost of a dog's but it was just the dog's legs walking by. We have
Nice.
like the more interesting the story is and the more amazing it is for someone, that's the kind of stories that we're interested in collecting on the map at Liminal Earth. And in the process of sort of going out there and collecting information and soliciting stories, we decided we wanted to start doing our own investigations into some of them and into some of the areas around here. And that kind of led into doing like the TikToks, and we have a YouTube channel that we're slowly ramping up. And, we're active on Twitter and all that stuff too. So we became more of a sort of society or investigation team. And we're just having so much fun, and it's just delightful to be able to share this project with the world.
So cool. So cool. I mean, on TikTok, you got, what is it, like 50K ish, give or take? I mean, you're around it, which is fantastic. I mean, man, I want this thing to go as to the moon for sure. Bex, do you mind sharing how do you explain what a liminal space is? What is the definition for like a liminal space, if you feel comfortable sharing that?
Of course. I
Okay.
thought about it quite a bit. I like to think of it as a space in between. Um, but what I also like to think about is it not just being a space. It could be a moment in time that's rather liminal. It can be a 2D object that can be quite liminal. It's kind of hard to put a definition on that part of it, but how I've most referred to it as like being in between here and there.
Okay.
And it can often be hiding in plain sight is like my favorite part of the definition.
So it's like something that might feel a little off, or like if you're like, that's a little weird. Like you get that feeling kind of
It's
deal,
like
or
when you experience something like extraordinary. I don't know. It's very different than it's very different than this mundane experience. There's something that just stands out. And I don't know, it's hard to describe. I think of those liminal pictures that you see in those memes of like empty hallways and things.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they elicit a feeling. And that is what liminal is.
For me, it's also a weird like nostalgic that you can't like quite place, like usually from the 90s. It's like I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but it's very cool. It's very cool. The thing I also love about you guys is like you have a really cool, it seems like a community building around Liminal Earth, which I think is really cool. I mean, and you do some awesome things, like every Wednesday night, everyone's up like looking for UFOs together. Garrett, is that something you might be able to spend a few minutes chatting about, or?
Sure. Yeah. Our friend Weird Astrology on Twitter found this thing that John Keel had said in the Mothman Prophecies, that the best time to see a UFO is Wednesday at 10 p.m. Nice. And so we're like, let's put that to the test. So we went outside and we were like looking up to the skies for that. And I noticed in that moment, like it was a really nice like mid-week break to like just go outside and like look at the sky for a while. And so we decided to keep doing this, and it's like strangely like become this like thing where now we're like streaming every Wednesday.
Oh wow.
Prior to this, Bex is trying to contact them with like spirit boxes, and I made a Mac and Me spirit box that like chops up the audio from Mac and Me,
like from Conan
yeah,
like Conan right. And Paul Rudd. Yeah,
right,
dude.
totally.
Oh my god,
like that McDonald's ET rip off or whatever. But like I made this thing that like cuts the audio up and it sounds like a spirit box, but it's just using that audio.
Wow.
And then I built like an antenna to like beam signals up into space with my ham radio. So I've been trying to reach aerial entities that way. So I know it's just like a weekly like free. We wanted to make something free that everyone could be involved in, and just access and like it's a simple thing to just go outside if you have access to go outside and like look into the sky. And we try to make it as accessible as possible and include as many people as we can.
I love that. Oh man.
Yeah.
And it's a great reminder because, right now it's like everyone is so another thing I really like about Liminal Earth is like it's almost like a reminder to return to we were inside for a few years. There's weird stuff outside. Let's go find it. If you can do that. And that's part of what I love about Liminal Earth is like reclaiming the weirdness in your area almost, or discovering the stuff that maybe no one has ever cared about. And I think that is really special.
Absolutely. I feel like we get so many comments on our TikTok like, oh, I live in such a boring town. I'm like, I feel challenged now. I want to help you find that there are weird stuff, because I feel like it's everywhere if you just kind of set intention and go look for it. And you'll find I feel that's my personal belief is that if you kind of go looking for it, sometimes you'll get responses that way. You'll see, you'll encounter things, or it just opens your eyes to things that maybe were always there that you just took for granted. So I think you can do this in any town, like kind of, doing research on your town, or, just kind of doing weird experiments in your town. So
there's a phrase that was brought up in one of your TikTok videos, and I would be curious if you can explain what it means. Oh man, I can't say it. Okay. Remythologizing your landscape. I apologize. I did not pronounce that word right. I know, but Jeremy, I know it was you that said it, but it feels like there's so much behind that phrase. And I would love if you guys could maybe like dig into a little bit. What does that phrase mean to you guys?
Yeah. To me, so, I also have a background in the study of philosophy and religion and mythology. Yes. And to me, my preferred definition of myth is it's a story that gives meaning to someone's life. Like it's it doesn't have to be true. It doesn't have to be false. It's just this story is something that we find meaningful. And I think that to me, in sort of, so when we started off, Garrett and I started the map, it was just Liminal Seattle. And one of the reasons we started it was a kind of a reaction to, so like Amazon and Google and, all these companies, they came into downtown Seattle and they turned this cool old neighborhood into this like lifeless, just big empty box buildings. And it just, it didn't have any sort of character anymore. And so we said, well, there's still cool and interesting and weird stuff here. Like, let's see how much of it we can put on a map. And in a way, what we are doing is we're kind of trying to create or to recognize new myths surrounding the landscape. And, obviously indigenous people still have sort of a mythic view of the way that they interact with the land. And I think that a lot of our culture, our sort of late stage capitalist colonialist culture has replaced a lot of those myths with, commodification kind of. And I think that what is cool is that you can go out into the landscape and you can have these experiences, these really weird, interesting, strange experiences, and turn those experiences into myths for yourself. So like one of our one of the big ones that we've had it on our TikTok a lot is there's this place called the Black River Riparian Forest, which is in a suburb of Seattle called Renton. And at one of the entrances to this area, there are these piles of peeled oranges that have been showing up.
Well,
just these
I haven't seen this one. I am going into this tonight.
Yeah. Go back to our TikTok. You'll see there's these mounds, and it's like 100 like peeled oranges just sitting there. And I think a lot of people would walk by and go, huh, that's weird. But like to us, this is like, what? How did they get there? What's going on? So,
then they keep coming back. Really the oranges keep appearing.
It's been happening for years.
For years?
Well,
years.
No one knows why.
Yeah, so we've gone onto these Renton, Facebook groups, and we've actually talked to locals in the area, a number of locals in the area, and they're like, what are you up to? Oh, we're looking into the piles of oranges, and they'll be like, those are so weird, So obviously there's something there. And it's something that can take you into sort of a mythic space. As absurd as the idea is, it can become a story that you can be part of and you can interact with. And so we're trying to get to
Okay.
the bottom of these oranges, and in a sense, that's sort of
I get it.
remythologizing
I get it.
the
Yeah.
landscape of the area. So
It's like that meme when you've got Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny and he's in front of the board with the red string and it's like if something grasps you that hard and turns you into like you are crazy for something, like for me it's a Van Meter Visitor and I get into that story. That's our local Iowa cryptid, but it's like then you can like get involved with the story and you can kind of help change it or like figure it out. And I love that. That's a really cool. I'm gonna have to check that out on the TikTok tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So,
and it doesn't have to be something huge. It doesn't have to be something that's, I'm not like, you can go out and look for the meaning of life, or you can go out and wander in the woods and try and find like a big connection with spirits. But you can also like wonder why there is a mysterious bag of hair on the bus, which is one of the reports we have on our map, or, or the pile of, like, it can be anything. The point is you can get out there and you can, we often say like, oh, we're the kind of people who used to watch the X-Files and Twin Peaks and be like, wouldn't it be kind of cool to have that kind of real experience? And we're finding that like we can go out and have those experiences, even if they seem kind of mundane on the surface. So
I probably have a few listeners right now. They're like, and I think this has already come up a little bit, but I live in Podunkville, Iowa. I can talk bad about Iowa because I live in central Iowa, but I live in small town USA. How am I going to start finding the weird stuff, the liminal areas in my neighborhood? And like how do you recommend someone start out finding the weird stuff in their boring neighborhood or whatever?
Right. I think, well, Garrett, correct me if I'm wrong, but you and I both grew up in pretty small towns, right? I know I did. And so I always think when I hear people comment on our TikToks and they're like, I can't find anything like this, I have to sit here and think, like, I grew up in a town with like 1,000 people. If I found all this weird stuff and have to write columns about, like, you can find it. I guarantee it. And the way to like get started for me, I'll make the example of the peninsula I live on. We moved here kind of on a whim. We knew we were moving to Washington. We just didn't know where exactly. And we just lucked out and got this house.
Nice.
But we started having activity. And so one of the first things I did was I started talking to my neighbors. And I'll just, shoot it. And then I'll kind of be like, something really weird happened. I'm just going to pass it by you. And what do you know? Most of the people that I talked to had really similar experiences, or if they didn't, they knew someone who did. And then I got to know them. And then I also started going onto the local Facebook groups for if it's like your county or your region, and those are a wealth of knowledge. And so I know that Garrett and I, Jeremy, you might be on as well. The Kitsap Peninsula one is a really good one. And when I lived up in Alaska, my whole island had one. And so I'm pretty sure the majority of like small USA pockets have a Facebook group that's at least buy, sell, trade. And from there you can find like the legends and the weird, they're there. And they're a really good place to start. And so I would recommend that. And then I went the old fashioned route and I put up flyers everywhere. It was just like, email me if you got a weird story.
So, there's more I will tell you after this episode, but I have thought of doing something similar to that. So that's really cool that you brought that up, because I think there's something to be said about doing the old school flyer route. Like, you will find the people that have the stories if you put the flyers. Yeah, that's cool. I love that. Do you find that eventually word gets out that you're like the resident person on the weird stories, and have you guys experienced that? Or
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I know that Garrett's kind of a figure in Bremerton now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm the shrimp guy in
right, yeah,
because Bremerton has this this legend or a story that got printed in Strange magazine of this giant shrimp a woman saw in her basement in
Shrimpy.
1948.
Yeah.
And it's when I moved here like 4 or 5 years ago, and Jeremy looked up, cryptids in Bremerton, and we found that story, and people kind of talk about it, but when I got here, a lot of people had never heard the story, and now I'm walking around in a shrimp costume, and I was trying to get the city council to make like a mascot for the town.
Oh wow.
And it's kind of taken on a life of its own, and it's so fun that it's like such a small, unique story just for this place. Like there's no other place that has a giant shrimp cryptid. So
the story,
it does make me like a magnet for people telling me their stories, though. It's pretty
which
awesome.
is amazing. Man, the story of Shrimpy is, because the first TikTok I saw about the Shrimpy thing, I was like, wait, what? And then like you guys had a playlist, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to watch all these, and this is kind of what the point is. You gotta watch all of them. But like, it's such a cool story. It's such a cool regional cryptid, which I love regional cryptids. But it's like, you would think Bremerton would be like, we need to get a statue up now, and we need to get a Shrimpy museum now, and do Point Pleasant thing, and let's get cracking. Like,
right,
dude.
I have some city councilors on board.
All right,
but it's an uphill battle.
The mural,
but
yeah, there's a mural now. Yeah,
there is a mural. Yeah. People do artwork in town, and it's pretty awesome. And we like actually do some investigation of it because it's like a short story, and it's all the people involved are no longer really around. It's pretty old.
Yep.
But we were able to, there's a street that gets mentioned called Denny, and we went to it, and it's like, this doesn't really match, the story, because it says like she went down into her basement, and that her landlord had said that there were holes in the wall that went all the way to the ocean, and like, this is in the middle of the peninsula. There's no ocean near here. So we put this on TikTok, and then residents in Bremerton, like who grew up in Bremerton, were like, oh, there's a creek there. You just can't see it. I used to go down and play in that creek as a kid.
Yeah.
And there's crawfish down there, which is like, and the creek goes all the way to the ocean. And I'm like, what? Like, is Shrimpy real? Like, totally like blew my mind. And
Dude,
it's so
Shrimpy's
cool
100% real.
I know. So like TikTok totally, it got that hyper local audience to like give us like real feedback. It was amazing. So
that's why people don't understand why TikTok is a big deal. But if you are like into weird stuff and a researcher, the algorithm on TikTok is crazier than we could ever think. And the right people will find what you're talking about. And I've gotten reports that have just blown my mind, and it sounds like it's working for you guys. And so you got guys, listeners, get on TikTok if you're trying to do research in your area. Just do it. I'm curious. Let's talk about. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a change of scenery a little bit. So I'm just gonna ask you some, videos I've seen on your TikTok, and I'm just curious about the story. So Garrett, can you share with me the story of your Bigfoot call drum? It's like it exceeds. It's like outside the realm of words. But
well, I was at a event with Jeremy. We were tabling. It was like a kind of a paranormal but also music label event, and so this woman came and sat with us, and she talked to us for a really long time. And she was telling us all about her Bigfoot experiences, and that she goes out into the forest. She's friends with some of those expedition Bigfoot folks as well.
Oh yeah, sure.
She was showing us all these pictures of weird things in the trees. She was really interesting. She talked to us for like 3.5 hours or something, just really like going deep in it. It was really cool. I think she was someone who's like a little shy and doesn't, a little anxious to tell her story. So, I was totally into listening to her. And then she's like, you know what? I have something for you. And she left. And she came back from her car, and she brought me this gourd that she had made into like a Bigfoot drum. She had carved Bigfoot into it, and it's like you shake it, and it makes this thunder sound or something.
Oh, that's from the gourd.
Yeah.
Whoa. How does it do that?
It has like a spring and like a drum head or something.
Oh man, that's so
All these
cool.
symbols and stuff. Anyways, it's just like a cool gift that she brought me. And there's that whole gifting thing with Bigfoot, and
True.
so
yeah.
cool to receive this like really special handmade gift from someone like that. Anyways, yeah, it was really cool. And it was funny in that video. It's just walking with my wife and kid. We're in by this waterfall in Kitsap. And it's kind of a busy trail, and I was doing this drum thing. Then recently, Bex did like a case log on our Patreon of like Bigfoot sightings in Kitsap, and the first one is like right there by the falls, and I'm like, what? So I may have been inadvertently like, calling them with my Bigfoot drum. I don't know.
Oh my goodness! Oh, yeah. Dude, that's so wild. So yeah, that's. So people that are watching this, get over to TikTok, watch the Bigfoot drum videos. Like, you will love it. You'll love it. I have a question for each of you. So, let's see, how do I want to word this? What's you can choose weirdest or scariest thing you've had happen to yourself in the woods? Have you had any like weird things or like something weird or strange, like the number one weirdest thing that stands out in your minds, if you can think of anything on the spot?
I've got one from Florida, and there's actually there's also a TikTok about this experience here if you look for it. So back when this was back in high school, and some friends and I would go kind of out camping in this little spot of woods next to some suburbs, and it was being developed at the time. So they had clear cut like where the roads were going to be, but everything else was still like sort of this dense pine scrub Florida. And it was really close to a friend of mine's house. And so we would go out on weekends and we would just like toss our tents up and, do crazy teenager stuff in the woods. And one of the things we like to do is play capture the flag. So
nice.
We me and a couple of my buddies, we were playing capture the flag, and we had this idea, well, we're going to just take our flag and go like way off someplace where they'll never find us. And we'll sit here and just hang out. And, by the time we get back, we'll be the default winners. So we were sitting there, and I remember distinctly, it was near this like old, like 1950s baby blue pickup truck that somebody had abandoned, in the woods. And we were kind of crouched there, and we saw, this figure walking towards us down one of the roads. And we couldn't make out any of the features or anything. And so we had this friend who was on one of the other teams, and his nickname was Tree, because he liked to dress in camouflage and hide on the side of the trail and like jump out at you like, it's a tree, he's coming after us. So we were like, oh, we said, who's that coming towards us? Oh, it must be Tree or something like that. And then one of my friends said, that's way too tall to be Tree. And we realized at the time, all of a sudden, this thing was like 7 to 8 feet tall.
Oh man.
Still walking towards us. So we were like, whoa, like, oh my gosh, what do we do? It was between us and the camp. So we would have to, like, to get back to the camp, we would have to go past where this thing was. So we were like, I don't know what to do. So we decided to, we were watching, and as we're watching, all of a sudden this thing got down onto all fours and leapt off of the trail into the woods.
Dude, no.
And we started talking about it, and we were like, it the way that it looked, we realized it had no definition. So it was as though it wasn't as though we were seeing an object walking towards us. It was more like an absence of space, like black nothingness in humanoid form. And so we had to get back to the camp right away, and we were like, and so we just kind of like, and we were trying to be sneaky and quiet and walk by as fast as we could. We finally got back to the camp, and everybody else was already back, and they came back because they had been hearing screaming in the woods. And we were like, okay, that's it. So we all huddled together around the campsite. Nobody slept that night. But that's definitely, there's a lot more to that story, which, is for another time. But that's definitely the scariest, creepiest paranormal thing that's happened to me in the woods.
There are so many weird state forests in Florida. People don't realize it, but I mean, my buddies Alex and Eli and Tate, like when they're going out to look for Bigfoot and they did the Beyond the Trail series on Florida, there's weird stuff down there, man. Like, I totally agree with you, Jeremy. Garrett, Bex, any other weird things happen to you that you can think of, or?
So I think Garrett and I actually share an experience
Oh,
as
cool.
far as creepiest because I grew up in the woods and my dad's like a Alaskan mountain man, and so I've had a lot of close
wow.
calls with like wildlife while on like the Gold Plains. We had a really close call with a pack of wolves once. We stayed out a little too late, so I think of those things, but it's actually pretty difficult for me to find something truly creepy. And the thing that I keep going back to is an experience that Garrett and I had at a cemetery, a very rural cemetery around here.
Okay.
And this town is called Seabeck, and it has a variety of experiences. I mean, there's a lot of UFO sightings in the area. The cemetery was rather old and was supposed to have some activity. And then we believe that there's some Bigfoot activity.
Oh, wow.
But we went around, we were like cleaning off the graves, reading the graves, and we were gonna do some sort of like Estes session, divination. Yeah, and so we sat in the middle of like this triangle of Douglas fir trees and set up shop, and we were divining, and we were trying to talk with whomever was there. And then we heard a series of crashes in the woods, and it was
weird.
so loud. And so I kind of got up and kind of jumped and was like, if it's an animal, like I need to go check it out, or if it's a person, that might be.
I hid. I let Bex go do that.
There's a TikTok you can see. He's like, she left me. Okay, so I go to check it out, and there's nobody. And
oh man,
I hear like something kind of go away, and I'm like, I think I know what that is. And so I do my Bigfoot call, and I forget to tell Garrett I'm doing the Bigfoot call. He's like, and so we finish our session, and we're like, well, that was pretty wild. And at the time I was thinking more of like a Fae association, but it was just, I think, influenced by what I was reading at the time. One could argue that those are linked. But what's extra interesting about the story is what happened like to Garrett afterwards. And it definitely still crosses like that Bigfoot hangs out in cemeteries, but then I'm also like, but how metaphysical or how spiritual can like Bigfoot be? Because Garrett had like a really interesting dream. Or no, not Garrett. One of our Liminal Earth ambassadors had a dream, and wow. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, like this thing, we were doing that dream thing on TikTok where we're trying to get people to have like a shared dream. I don't know if you've seen that one. But
like the playground thing?
Right. So at that time, I was doing that, and Bex went and did this Seabeck investigation. I'd also, like a week prior, I had found this random telephone booth, and I was kind of joking, like, is this like an astral telephone booth? I'm going to leave a message of, interdimensional voicemail, see if I get any messages back. And then this happened. Like, so Bex and I did this thing. And then the next morning after we were in the cemetery, a friend of ours living in Indiana, who I haven't really talked to in a while, maybe like 2 years, she like sent me this text. She's like, hey, I had this dream about you last night. And so I already thought that was weird because people were already having all these dreams about me from TikTok, but she didn't know any of this.
Whoa, weird.
And then, so I was like, oh, cool, interesting. Then I started reading her dream, and she's like, yeah, I was driving through a cemetery, and then I came over to your house, and I had a cold, so you put, you said, oh, I can help you with that, and you put a blindfold, or you put like a sheet over my head. That's what, and then you put this thing on my ears that was playing all the static. And you were trying to talk to me.
No way. No.
And that is what Bex and I were doing in the cemetery.
Well, yeah, that's the Estes method, right?
Yes. Right.
If my Hellier studies.
Exactly.
We were doing that in a cemetery. Bex had blindfold and headphones. And the way she was describing it, she wasn't even thinking Estes method. It was as if someone was explaining it who didn't know what that was, like it was like putting a sheet over your head, this weird thing on your ears that was making static. But that is the Estes method, but that's not how she was conceiving it when she was telling us, you know?
She just didn't
So,
know.
and it
Wow.
really felt to me like something was like reaching out in a way, like giving a response to that voicemail, you know, and it correlates to this thing
Wow.
we heard in the forest, and like that was its response. It freaked me out because I could not explain how this person would know what we were doing. We didn't tell anyone we were going to the cemetery the day before. No one knew that except Bex and I. So it really freaked me out because I had no way to explain it. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, if you're into like those stories, I'm telling you, go check out the Liminal Earth TikTok. It's all there. Oh man. I like asking everyone I have on this show some Bigfoot questions because Bigfoot's kind of my jam. But I'm curious, especially since you all live in the Pacific Northwest. But if you had to answer what is Bigfoot, like in your own opinion, how are you viewing Bigfoot as? And I'll leave it at that.
Ooh, I'll go first.
All right.
I say a big old mystery.
Oh, that's a good one.
And
Yeah.
I really vibe with the whole the Salish legends of them shapeshifting. But I also vibe with the ET or the Fae for an explanation.
Very cool. Jeremy?
Yeah, I actually have this pinned on it's my pinned tweet on my personal Twitter account. But have you seen the Studio Ghibli films, the Miyazaki, Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro and things like that?
I'm gonna lose so much cred on this because I want to love them, but like I've tried. I guess I have to become. I don't know. I'm gonna try again someday. But I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not for everybody. I personally adore these movies.
Awesome.
And so there's My Neighbor Totoro is one of the big ones.
Yes.
And I think Bigfoot is a Totoro. Like this.
Interesting.
This giant, enormous, fuzzy nature spirit that shapeshifts and is associated with a particular space. To me, that doesn't conflict with the idea of it being like a physical hominid being either. I think there can be I think things can exist in multiple states. But I tend to think of Bigfoot more as a I know like a spiritual being, like a nature spirit of some kind. That's the way that I see it.
I like that analogy. That's really cool with the Totoro. I'm familiar enough to know like he's kind of like got a Big Hero 6, like you just want to give him a hug type deal.
Garrett, if you I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I just wanted to say if you go back and watch the movie now, like keep that in mind, and you might like it better.
I will give it another chance, especially if it's something related to Bigfoot. I'll usually be able to get into it. So, or the analogy. But Garrett, what do you think? Oh, you are muted, my friend.
I don't really know. I think one of the things that unites us is that we're not super into debunking things, and so I think that people can totally go do that. But I'm always engaging with this as like what if, and like kind of exploring the mystery of it. We actually were just doing some stuff about orca whales, and we found this guy who like plays music for the orca whales.
Oh wow!
And he said this thing about like I'm not interested in solving mysteries. I'm interested in celebrating them. And I think that's like kind of where we're coming from. Like, I don't really need to know what Bigfoot is, but I love all, just pursuing it and kind of going, hearing people's stories about it. I love just taking that all in, but I have no freaking idea what it is. So
I like that. It's the mystery and exploring. When you were at Humboldt State University, it is in your bio. Did you ever go to the Bigfoot research room? I believe that's the same school, right?
I don't think I did.
Oh,
I don't.
Man.
I don't remember. I might have. That's so long. I know that like Willow Creek, we went there one. It's been like 20 something years, but at the time it wasn't as, I was pretty terrified of all this stuff at the time. So
that's true. I forget that most of us have a point in our life where we went from, maybe, and for myself, I had a point too where it's like you're not really into weird stuff, and then it's like you're into weird stuff. For most people, it's not their whole life, but
yeah. My parents had communion, and I was always to like turn the book upside down so I didn't have to look at that cover, And then I finally read it, and that actually helped me like get through it all, But like I was just constantly terrified of like aliens looking through my window when I woke up or something, So at the time I was just terrified of all that stuff, even in college. So
dude, the cover of Communion is that's a weird looking alien, dude. Like I agree with you. Like not for me, for sure. we're going to try something new on the podcast. So listeners, get ready. If this stinking plummets into crash and burnville, then it's all right because we're all cool. So there's a UFO podcast that does this thing where like they'll say different topics, and then I'll have you guys kind of like a talking head on a TV show. If you have like a sentence response to it or like what you think about it, we'll see how it goes. And then listeners, if you think this sucks, let me know. At least one of you. All right. So Bigfoot and black helicopters during Mount St. Helens eruptions.
The eruptions brought out all kinds of things.
Fair enough. All right. Time travel.
Garrett, that seems like it's something that you would.
Sure. Well, I have a letter from a time traveler. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, you do? I didn't know that. That's amazing.
My friend Jake found this letter from time travel in this suitcase in Seattle, and he opened it up, and it said, "Thank you for believing in time travel. Please write back, Jared." And people, I had made a TikTok about that. People like leave messages for the time travel in this suitcase that's still there.
Dude, that's awesome. I gotta watch that one too. My goodness. Skinwalker Ranch.
I used to be so into Skinwalker Ranch because I think for a lot of people, it was like their first introduction to the idea of high weirdness, where it's more than just a UFO, more than just, shape-shifting weirdness. But I think it's gotten to the point now where it is so saturated, it's become such a product that I tend to just kind of, my eyes glaze over now when I hear Skinwalker Ranch stuff.
Fair enough. I like the old stories where it's like they saw Bigfoot coming out of the portal on the ranch, and the dire wolves and all that good stuff back in the day, Sherman Ranch. Anyone else have anything to add, or we will hop on to the next fever dream? Hollow Earth.
I think of Garrett's radio station.
Yeah, yes, that's true. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, at the time I was really fascinated with the Hollow Earth because it was like, whether or not you believe that's true, I'd taken for granted that, like right underneath your feet you're on, it could be hollow, and there could be a whole civilization there. Crazy. So it's just like the idea of like things that are taken for granted right in front of your face. I really love that. And it was the whole idea with the radio station, we're doing underground music. So like, the aliens down there playing their jams.
Dude, they got to jam out. It's a good, I was listening to it earlier. It's a fun radio station. Like everyone should check out, just look up the Hollow Earth radio station. It's fun stuff. We're going to do two more. So next one is Ewok movies.
That's probably me again. When I was 5 years old, I made a catapult that crashed into my head because I had watched the Ewok movies, and and it somehow is related to maybe some kind of extraterrestrial, like fire in the sky type experience when I got stitches. But that's a long story.
All right. Hey, I dig that you made the catapult from the Ewok movies. So
yeah, my sister wouldn't get on the other side. She would have launched in the air, but instead it just hit me in the head. I have a scar right there.
That's wild. Gotta love Wilford Brimley in the Ewok movies. That's a Good dude. Last but not least, Mothman.
I like to call him the cryptid bachelor.
The cryptid bachelor.
He would be the bachelor contestant of all the cryptids.
Yeah.
Because he wants to say what his best feature.
What?
He has a really good butt.
And some great abs too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But the question is, would the Shrimpy statue have the same quality abs, or what would we have going? Like,
Crustacean ab.
maybe Shrimpy's more like a dad bod guy. I don't know. But
Yeah, totally. I think
Yeah.
all right. Well, thanks for having a little fun with me on that one. Believe it or not, we are winding down to the last few minutes. Last question. Are there any, I feel like Liminal Earth has a certain vibe. And have you ever seen any like TV shows or movies that would have the same vibe as what Liminal Earth has? I know that's a really weird question, but
It's a good one.
I like the question because I think that like I'm really into like pop culture kind of phenomenon, and so I love thinking about this because I think in some ways that is kind of like myths that we are as a society that we can share. I thought of one though that totally does, which is Gravity Falls.
oh yes,
Have you seen Gravity Falls?
I love Gravity Falls, dude.
Yeah, Gravity Falls is totally like I even have a
you
like
have the Dipper hat.
Dipper hat.
Yeah.
And people like on TikTok leave comments like, "Oh my gosh, Dipper's grown up," and like totally, yeah. That's I want to be in Gravity Falls. Like that's
Oh my goodness,
that's totally it,
dude. That makes so much sense. That it's Gravity Falls for sure. I want that show to come back somehow, but I mean, the writing's fantastic. Guys, it has been fun having you all on. I'm a super, super big fan of what you do. And I'll tell you some more stuff after the show here. But share with the listeners how they can keep up to date. And also like share some about your Patreon, if you wouldn't mind, because I think it's really cool how you have that community going on as well.
Sure. Yeah, Patreon is Liminal Earth Society. And back in November, like we pretty much reconstructed it. So we have different tiers, and each tier is actually named after a map submission. So we have our desert root beers and our chatty Bigfoots and our so I think that's fun. But you can join for as little as $1 and you get Discord benefits. We save and archive every single stream that we do, and that's a privilege for
wow.
Patreons to be able to watch it forever. For $5 and up, we do monthly magic sentences, this kind of bibliomancy method. And yeah, we do those once a month, and they also get special shout outs and things like that in the emails. $10 is really exciting because I write weekly case logs, and I'll go really into depth about different map submissions or regional things. So yeah, the Kitsap Bigfoot one was especially fun. Because yeah, I found that place that Garrett went, and I was like, okay, 1955, there was a drive-by Bigfoot, and then yeah, we do have a couple more tiers, but like 25 and up, we do like a quarterly box just full of like witchcraft goodies and like fun little items like really pretty rocks that I got from Port Townsend, and I make like all kinds of handmade candles, and I'm loving the idea of like incorporating some really like weird techie gadgets that Garrett's tweaking and things. So kind of the different what each of us bring to the table in a box.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just having some knickknacks, and yeah, so we do that, but then we also have WUFO that's completely free, super accessible and safe. And that you can find at wufo.watch.
Okay.
Every single Wednesday at 8:30 Pacific Standard, we do a live contact session that you can stream directly on the website, but it's also on TikTok. We've tried different like contact methods to reach aerial entities is how we prefer to call them, because like our catchphrase is, we would be just as excited if we contacted an alien as if we did like a bird that was flying over. Just happened to be like,
Fair enough.
um, and then all across the board, you can find us at Liminal Earth. We're most active on like Twitter, Instagram, but I would say our two main contenders there would just be going directly to the map at liminal.earth and then checking out our Patreon, Liminal Earth Society.
Fantastic. And if someone has a story to share, what is the easiest way that they can share their amazing encounter or weird story with you so it gets on Liminal Earth?
Liminal.earth/submit.
Nice.
Or you could also just go to liminal.earth. There's a big link that says, "Here, click here to submit a story." So yeah, it's just it's a pretty quick form. We don't want like if somebody wants to be anonymous, that's totally fine. Again, we're not into debunking anything, so no matter how strange you think we're gonna think it is, we've heard stranger, believe me, and we want to celebrate that. Like we want people to feel comfortable being able to share these experiences. And then the other thing too I wanted to mention about the map and submitting things is that we're not sending anybody to anybody's house. So you can you could submit something and give us some coordinates and an actual address or something, and we will put it on like the closest intersection. Or if you don't want to even tell us that, like just give us the town, we'll put it like smack dab in the middle of the town. We want to make everything as accessible and easy to do as possible, and safe too. So we would never, we're not putting private residences or anything like that on the map. So
I'm glad you brought that up. I wouldn't even have thought of that. That's a great point. Yeah. But man, Garrett, Jeremy, Bex, thank you so much for all hanging out tonight. And everyone, go get familiar with Liminal Earth. I'll have the links in the show notes for this. But thanks so much for coming on tonight, all.
Of course.
Thanks
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been too long trying to make it happen, so it's been really happy. We're really happy we're able to do it.
Yeah, me too. The crew's gonna hang out for a little bit longer with the Patreon in the after show, and maybe ask some questions. I've got a whole list of other stuff. Believe it or not, it's gonna get weirder than this one did. I've got a whole list, so it'll be fun. But you can access that, and if you go to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. But thanks so much for hanging out tonight, and have a good night, all. Thanks for listening to the Bigfoot Society podcast. Please take a few minutes to review the show on iTunes, 5 stars, as it does help us get into the eyes and ears of more listeners on iTunes. That will help us just get bigger and bigger and get even better quality guests for future shows. Also, if you have any Bigfoot encounters or cryptid encounters, please send your stories and audio and photos, whatever you've got, over to bigfootsociety@gmail.com. If you'd like to become more involved with Bigfoot Society and get some extra content, we do have a Patreon where you can get all sorts of cool things. For example, for $7 a month, you get extra Bigfoot Society content, usually interviews, but other things as well. You get a sweet membership card and a vinyl sticker that I send to you in the mail. You get access to the Bigfoot Society after show, which is an extra interview after the main interview with the weekly guest, and usually they are up for Patreon members to be in that extra show segment with them and me, and you get to ask your question live to them and get an answer from the guest, which, as you've seen what guest we've had in the past, this could be a really big deal. There's also a private Discord where you can get involved with talking to me one-on-one and the community there, and that's always a great time. You can find the Patreon at www.patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. We're very thankful for all our supporters that we have in so many different ways, and appreciate all our listeners coming back week after week to listen to more cryptozoology-based interviews. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. The views and opinions expressed are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Bigfoot Society. Any content provided by our guests are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone. Thank you.